At the yearly summit of Phoenix Tech, my plan was to publicly declare my relationship with the CEO's partner in front of all attendees. Suddenly, her long-forgotten first love rose from the crowd and with evident pride announced, "Elena, I can finally stand beside you openly." Elena, my partner, remained silent and offered no clarification. Instead, she beamed and welcomed him warmly, introducing him to everyone as Victor, who would be leading our newest quantum computing initiative as the chief scientist. The audience erupted in applause, showering congratulations on what seemed like a flawless couple. Noticing my expressionless demeanor, Elena quickly gave me a discreet look. "Marco, why the long face? Is something bothering you?" she whispered. I gave a slight nod before impulsively discarding Victor's badge into the nearby trash bin. Naturally, I had a problem. With Professor Victor being so exemplary, why not announce our engagement right then and there to make everyone happy? Everyone was taken aback by my sudden action of throwing away the badge. Over the years, I had dedicated myself entirely to the quantum computing project, even to the extent of developing serious health problems. However, it soon became clear that everyone understood my frustration and began to applaud my gesture, praising me for my generosity. Only Elena remained unaffected. Standing on the stage, Elena had a menacingly dark expression in her eyes. Confronted by her stare, I felt no need to explain further. Elena had a strong aversion to workplace romances. We had been married for 5 years, yet she never disclosed our relationship to anyone. I had repeatedly asked her to make our partnership known, but she always declined, stating that as the CEO, she needed to set an example. She had promised that once the quantum computing project was successful, she would reveal our relationship to everyone. But now she had chosen someone else. Observing the admiration everyone had for Victor, Elena finally lost her composure and spoke up. "Marco, why are you causing a scene this time?" I replied with a faint smile. I'd rather miss out on countless opportunities than betray a single person. I gave everything I had, but it couldn't compete with just one word from someone else. I ceased speaking and turned to leave. The research success was a result of sleepless nights and my unwavering commitment. By leveraging all my connections, we managed to overcome the fundamental challenges of quantum computing within 3 years. I had faced numerous setbacks in the lab, all for Elena's glory today. Now my heart felt as cold as ashes, and I had no desire to assist her or anyone else anymore, even though the project was almost complete. Even if I gave Victor another 5 years, his theoretical, detached approach would never allow him to finish what remained. I made my way to the underground parking garage and mounted the small electric scooter that Elena, in her apparent generosity, had purchased for me. I couldn't help but smirk bitterly. For 5 years, Elena had controlled the company's finances. I had repeatedly requested a car, but she always declined, citing that the company already provided one. "Why spend extra money? Are you trying to keep up with others?" For 5 years, she never let me drive her car. Claiming it was to avoid suspicion, I had no objections, assuming she was merely considerate of the company's image. But the day Victor returned to the country, she promptly bought him a Porsche. That's when I realized the truth. It was all because she no longer had feelings for me. My heart had grown numb, and just as I was about to leave, a brand new Porsche blocked my path. Victor rolled down the window, his face twisted in contempt. "Marco, with your pathetic appearance, do you really think Elena will acknowledge you? It's laughable. Fortunately, I'm the one Elena announced today. If it were you, the entire tech industry would be ridiculing us," I thought. He mocked me from his elevated position, a tactic he often used to provoke me before playing the victim, attempting to create a rift between Elena and me. In the past, most of our disputes had been fueled by him. Now, I had no interest in engaging. The next moment, Elena rushed out, and Victor abruptly swerved the car, crashing it into a nearby pillar. "Marco, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were here. I understand you're upset that I overshadowed you, but you shouldn't have blocked my path. If anything happened, I'd regret it for the rest of my life." He quickly exited the car, feigning an apology. I didn't want to waste time arguing, so I attempted to leave on my scooter, but Elena kicked me to the ground. If you want to die, stay away and stop bothering Victor. If she had merely reviewed the security footage, she would have known who was lying, but she refused to look. In that instant, my heart turned to ashes. Victor pretended to help me up, but I impatiently pushed him away. He immediately acted as if he were injured and fell to the ground. It was a pathetic display, but unfortunately, some people were easily deceived. Elena promptly slapped me without hesitation, then lovingly hugged Victor. She drove him to the hospital, running several red lights along the way. Watching this, I couldn't help but remember last year when I'd bled from gastric ulcers after working tirelessly to secure project investments. She had only sent me a bottle of medicine through her assistant. I forced a bitter smile and picked up my electric scooter to go home. That night, Victor updated his social media with a post saying, "Sometimes injury is a blessing. It's nice to have someone care for you." The photo showed Elena feeding him, smiling warmly. I commented without emotion, wishing them both a lifetime of happiness. Moments later, Elena called me. I expected her to blame me for ruining the event, but instead she spoke softly. "Marco, Victor is just like that. Once he adapts to the work environment, I'll make our relationship public. The title of chief scientist is merely a formality. The project is still under your leadership, and you remain in charge behind the scenes." I responded coldly and indifferently. She had been playing this game for 5 years, slapped me once, and then offered a sweet gesture. I was exhausted by it all and sensed my detachment. She paused before saying, "I've prepared a gift for you in the drawer. Consider it compensation. Please, don't make a scene." I opened the drawer and found a beautifully wrapped gift box clearly labeled for Victor. It was meant for someone else. No wonder she seemed so guilty. I didn't say anything more and hung up the phone, too tired to even open it. I threw the gift box into the trash, then took out my phone and called Titan Innovations, a company that had been courting me. "I've made my decision. I'll join next month." Titan Innovations, a global leader in quantum computing, had been extending offers to me for years. Each proposal was better than the last, but I had never wavered because I wanted to stay by Elena's side. On the phone, they promised me the position of Vice President of R&D, along with stock options, a villa, a luxury car, and everything else. A chill ran through me. In 5 years of marriage, I had received less attention from Elena than I did from a stranger's company. I remembered when she casually mentioned wanting to become the queen of technology. So, I had given up a lifetime tenure at a prestigious foreign university to start anew with her. Countless sleepless nights debugging code, countless rushed meetings for the project. I had worn myself out. In the end, I single-handedly elevated Elena, who knew nothing about quantum computing, to the position of CEO, while I remained quietly in the background as a technician. I had provided her with everything she wanted, but ultimately, I had become a stepping stone for someone else. From now on, I would live for myself. That night, I booked my flight and wrote my resignation letter. I also sent the final technical parameters and testing plans for the quantum computer to Elena. Now, everything between us was settled. While packing my bags, I came across many dusty mementos: matching watches, custom coffee mugs, lab photos, and a celebratory video from our first published paper. These were all things Elena had collected over time, but I didn't realize when they had gathered dust, probably since the day Victor returned to the country. We used to stay up late writing code together, celebrating project breakthroughs. She used to take care of me when I was sick, and we vowed to change the world together. But then came the nights she didn't return home, and Victor's academic discussions. Even when I was hospitalized due to overwork, she never visited. It turned out that true love could fade. I once asked her why, but all I received in return was her disdain and impatience. "We've been together for so long," she'd say, "and you still don't understand. Victor is a top expert in the field. Of course he deserves more resources. Can't you grow up?" Looking at the photo in my hand, I suddenly felt ridiculous and tossed it into the trash. My phone vibrated with a message from Elena. "I have to accompany Victor to an academic conference tonight. We'll celebrate our anniversary another time." I didn't reply. silently canceling the reservation for the Michelin restaurant and the custom projection confession. In the past, she would cancel on me without notice, but this time, at least she informed me in advance. Bored, I scrolled through videos and saw the top trending topic was female CEO and scientist stroll under the moon, featuring a picture of Elena walking hand in hand with Victor on campus. The comments were filled with well wishes, and I absent-mindedly liked the post. After a shower, I went to a bar to unwind and also met with a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. When I returned home early in the morning, I saw Elena standing at the door with a stern expression. "So now you're learning to stay out all night," she remarked. I yawned, a bit surprised. She didn't spend the night out. In the past, whenever it involved an academic event with Victor, she would never leave his side, almost as if she needed to be with him constantly. I ignored her and headed toward the bedroom, but she grabbed my arm. "After all these years of marriage, now you're going out to bars? I specifically canceled the seminar to come back and be with you. And this is how you treat me, Marco. Do you even remember you're a husband?" A husband? Elena could lie without batting an eye, now accusing me of irresponsibility. It was our wedding anniversary, and she was wandering the campus with another man, yet she had the audacity to question my sense of responsibility. In the past, I used to stay up waiting for her to come home, but she would say I was too clingy and not independent enough, telling me to focus on the project instead. Now, when I stopped caring, she became obsessive. I responded half-heartedly, preparing to go to bed, but she forcefully pulled me up and stared at me coldly. "I haven't showered yet. You're going to stay with me." In the past, this request would have thrilled me. I would have meticulously prepared the bathwater at the perfect temperature and added her favorite essential oils. But now I found it absurd. Noticing faint red marks on her neck, I felt disgusted and impatiently pushed her away. "I've already showered? You can go by yourself." She looked at me in disbelief. "It's just our anniversary. I told you the seminar ran late. How could you be so inconsiderate? You went out drinking. Did I say anything? Why are you giving me this attitude?" She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. In the past, I would have chased after her, apologized, and tried to cheer her up. Now, I simply climbed into bed and slept soundly. The next morning, I slept until I naturally woke up and prepared a delicious breakfast for myself. Just as I was about to eat, I realized Elena was home. In the past, she would never return unless I apologized first. Reluctantly, I pushed the breakfast toward her, and her expression softened slightly. I noticed the lab access card lying on the table and froze. This was the highest level access card, granting entry to all experimental areas. I had applied for it multiple times, but had always been denied. Seeing my reaction, Elena awkwardly explained, "This is a birthday gift for Victor. We'll discuss yours later." I felt like I'd just fallen into an ice pit and laughed bitterly. Of course, she wouldn't think about me. I forced a smile, nodded, and handed her 2 documents. "Sign these." She took them impatiently. "You think just because I'm being nice, you can take advantage of me." She signed the first resignation letter without even looking up. Though I had expected this, my heart still ached. For the second document, the divorce agreement. She also signed it, but then realized something was wrong. Elena's expression changed dramatically as she threw the divorce agreement at me. "Marco, you think you can threaten me with divorce? You think I won't sign it? Fine, I'll sign it for you. Is that what you wanted?" I calmly responded, "Thank you." Seeing my indifference, Elena became even more furious. "I'm giving you one last chance. Rip up the divorce agreement and I'll pretend nothing ever happened." I ignored her and quietly put the agreement away. Elena trembled with anger. "Fine, Marco. You've got guts. Don't come crawling back in a few days begging me to reconsider." With that, she slammed the door and left. She was certain I would chase after her, as I always had before, to make amends. But this time, she was wrong. I shrugged and rode my electric scooter to the lab to collect my personal belongings. Upon arriving downstairs, I saw the research building surrounded by reporters and crowds. After inquiring, I learned that Victor, in an attempt to expedite a paper for publication, had skipped the final safety tests and launched the quantum computer prematurely. As a result, several financial institutions experienced data system crashes, leading to massive losses. It seemed they never bothered to read the testing plan I had sent. This was the outcome of their own reckless actions, but it was no longer my concern. Victor, surrounded by reporters, saw me and immediately shouted, "He's the main person responsible for the project. The data security incident is his fault." I turned to leave, but Victor blocked my path. "Running away after causing a mess? It's not going to be that easy, Marco. Do you even care about the clients who trusted our technology?" His words were filled with righteous indignation, and the crowd around us began to stir. "People like this fraud should be jailed. Compensate us. If you don't provide an explanation today, don't even think about leaving." Elena stood beside him but didn't acknowledge my predicament. At that moment, I felt utterly disillusioned. I looked at Victor and pulled out the press conference video. At the event, Chairman Lee had specifically stated that Professor Victor is the chief scientist. Now that something had gone wrong, he was trying to shift the blame onto an ordinary employee. "Do you think we, the workers, are just scapegoats?" I retorted. This immediately ignited the anger of the researchers around us. Exactly. It was clearly stated that Professor Victor was in charge. Now that something has gone wrong, they want to pin it on us. Are we researchers just pushovers? In the heat of the moment, some people started digging up evidence online, and someone even called the police. Elena panicked and quickly tried to explain. "Everyone, please calm down. We will provide an explanation." She then turned to me. "Marco, did you sabotage the system in the final stages out of jealousy for Victor? Could you really do something like this?" I smiled but remained silent. She became even more agitated. "You need to fix the system right now, or I'll fire you." I shrugged. "Why should I?" Elena stood her ground. "Because you're an employee of the company and it's your responsibility. You've been part of the whole project. You have an obligation." I smiled and shook my head, tossing the resignation letter she had signed in front of her. "Sorry, I'm no longer an employee of your company." Elena stared at me in shock. "Impossible. When did I ever approve your resignation? Without my permission? How dare you resign on your own?" I sneered. She was always like this, giving orders and assuming I would revolve around her forever. After 5 years of marriage, she had never treated me as an equal partner. I had sacrificed everything for her technological dreams, working tirelessly for 8 years, silently solving all technical problems behind her. The reason was simple. I loved her. But I'd forgotten that one-sided sacrifice only led the other person to take more and more. In the end, she casually handed over all my years of effort to someone else. Now, I no longer loved her. She no longer had the power to make me bow down. Her threats now seemed so ridiculous. "Elena?" Hysterical, she shouted. "Who gave you permission to resign?" Victor rushed over immediately, ripping up the still unopened resignation letter into pieces. "Elena, a core technical person like him needs your personal approval to resign. Since you had no idea, this resignation letter must be forged. You vile person. You think you can escape responsibility with these dirty tricks, Marco." "You're so naive," I retorted. I wasn't fazed. I took out another resignation letter from my bag. "Tear it up if you want. I have plenty more. If you get tired of tearing them, I'll happily tear them with you. Also, I don't deserve the title of core technical person. The real core person is you. You managed to become the chief scientist without even understanding anything. Your skills must be impressive. If that's the case, why don't you fix the system yourself? A returned PhD who can't even understand basic quantum entanglement. Can you?" Victor's face darkened, clearly stung by my words. Seeing her so-called genius being humiliated by me, Elena couldn't hold back her fury and charged at me. "Shut up. R&D was always your responsibility. Now you're making sarcastic remarks. Do you know how hard Victor worked to clean up your mess? Apologize to him immediately and go fix the system." I sneered. It was no surprise she was so eager to protect him. Looking at the 5 years we had been married, every time the project hit a bottleneck and people questioned it, not only did she never speak up for me, but she also publicly criticized my abilities. Yet, I naively thought she was motivating me. Seeing me remain silent, Elena took another step closer. What are you waiting for? Go fix the system. I calmly showed her the resignation letter I had signed. Chairman Lee, you might want to take a good look. This is your signature from this morning. Chairman Lee is a busy person, so it's understandable that he forgets small matters like this. After all, I'm just an insignificant nobody, hardly worth remembering. Elena's face turned pale as she stared at the signature in disbelief. This can't be. Her words hung in the air as she grabbed the resignation letter from my hands and began to examine it carefully. I sneered. What's wrong, Chairman Lee? Want to rip it up too? Go ahead, I've got the original. I can print as many copies as you want. Only then did Elena have to face reality. I had no further ties with this cold-blooded laboratory. Marco, the resignation letter you made me sign this morning was for your resignation. How has the lab wronged you? How have I wronged you? You're repaying kindness with betrayal like this. I was stunned by her shamelessness. She had the nerve to ask how she had wronged me. I was the one who built this quantum laboratory from scratch, and yet she handed over the highest level permissions and core projects to her genius professor, refusing to give me even the most basic experimental rights. How could she ask me where she had wronged her? I remembered questioning her when she made that decision. She said the lab was our joint effort, our mutual asset, and it wouldn't matter whose hands it was in. But she never once considered whether, as joint partners, it was necessary to consult me on such decisions. She never did. Elena had never considered me as her equal. To her, I had always been the subservient one, repaying kindness with betrayal. How much have I sacrificed for this lab, do you even know? Even if you're too busy to care about someone like me, just ask anyone in the lab, anyone, even the cleaning lady. Ask them what I've given. I've sacrificed my health. And what did you give me in return? At the press conference, in front of everyone, you handed over 8 years of my hard work to someone else. Elena panicked. I didn't do that. Victor is a top-tier expert. How is it better for the lab if he leads the project? Why can't you just be magnanimous? I raised my hands in mock surrender. I'm not magnanimous enough. Didn't I just step aside and give your genius professor a place? Still not satisfied? Elena shook with rage. You're making excuses. Since it was your project, you should see it through to the end. I laughed scornfully. Professor Victor, isn't he a returned PhD with extensive knowledge? Can't he even fix this minor system glitch? I'm giving him the opportunity to show off his talents, and now he's blaming me. Victor's face turned red, and the people around us began whispering and shooting him disdainful looks. Some even began to quietly mock him. His fragile pride couldn't take it, and he quickly adopted a pitiful expression and said to Elena, Elena, it's okay. If Marco doesn't want to, I can handle it. Elena looked at him with sympathy. Victor, I know you're capable, but this is Marco's responsibility. Why should you bear the burden? She then turned to me with an icy voice. Marco, I'm giving you one last chance. Fix the system or leave, or else. At this point, she hesitated. I didn't care and asked, or else what? Elena took a deep breath. Or else I'll divorce you. With her words, everyone in the room was stunned. What? Chairman Lee and Marco are married? Oh my God, I had no idea after all these years. This is shocking. It's laughable. After 5 years of marriage, no one knew until the moment of divorce. I always wondered why Marco always kept quiet. Turns out, it was because of this. If I were him, I wouldn't have tolerated it either. My wife handing my hard work to some young, handsome man, exactly. Working overtime on experiments, only for someone else to take all the credit. Who could stand that? This lab is a joke. I don't want to work here anymore. While the crowd was shocked, their emotions grew increasingly agitated. Many of the longtime employees had worked their way up alongside me and were already dissatisfied with Elena's behavior. Now that they knew our relationship, their anger only intensified, and many researchers immediately tendered their resignations. But Elena clearly didn't care about that anymore. She took a step toward me. Marco, this is your last chance. Don't say I didn't warn you. I gave her a mocking smile. Chairman Lee, did you forget something? You already signed the divorce agreement this morning. Now you're using divorce to threaten me. Doesn't that seem a bit ridiculous? Elena's face turned pale. Marco, don't push your luck. I'll pretend this morning never happened. If you go fix the system now, we're still married. As soon as she said that, the colleagues around us couldn't hold back anymore. Marco, don't be foolish. A woman like her isn't worth it. Elena immediately pointed at the researcher who spoke. You won't be coming to work tomorrow. The researcher sneered. If it weren't for Marco secretly giving us bonuses and bringing us onto projects, I'd have left a long time ago. Working myself to the bone for just over $10,000 a month and having to put up with your attitude. A PhD who doesn't even understand quantum entanglement is telling us what to do. I've had enough. As soon as he finished, other researchers also began handing in their resignations, including several key technical members. Elena was stunned and took a while to regain her composure. Panic crept into her voice. Anyone who resigns won't get a single penny in compensation. At those words, the crowd burst into laughter. What difference does it make whether you pay us or not? Elena became even angrier. If you all resign now, you'll be held responsible for the system failure. The anger of the crowd reached its peak. Responsible? Let me tell you, the last bit of debugging work could have been done by anyone here, but someone had to act all high and mighty. With that, everyone turned their gaze toward Victor. He insisted that everything had to go according to his plan, yet he had skipped even the most basic safety tests. And now he wants to blame us. I'll sue you in court if you keep talking like that. Exactly. Marco's plan was solid, but Victor had changed it all just to rush out a paper, skipping essential procedures. Now something had gone wrong, and he wanted to pin the blame on us. Do you really think we're pushovers? One by one, people started pulling out evidence, exposing it right then and there. Seeing this, the client representatives who had been watching from the sidelines finally understood the truth. They apologized to me and immediately picked up their phones to call the police. Seeing this unfold, Victor tried to escape but was quickly surrounded by the crowd. Is this how you're leaving? How irresponsible, Professor Victor. You dare to alter the plan without even understanding the most basic quantum error correction? Is this your academic level? Surrounded by the crowd, Victor could no longer pretend. He hurriedly sought help from Elena. Seeing things taking a turn for the worse, Elena quickly stood in front of him. Everyone, calm down. We'll give you all an explanation. She then turned to me, her gaze sharp. Marco, you must have sabotaged the system in the final stage, just out of jealousy for Victor. You're doing this just to hurt him. I smiled but remained silent. She became even more agitated. You need to go fix the system right now, or else I will never let you off the hook. I shrugged. Why should I? Elena responded confidently. Because you were involved in the entire project development. This is your responsibility. I shook my head with a smile and tossed all the documents she had signed in front of her. Sorry, I'm no longer part of the lab, and I'm certainly not your husband anymore. Elena was stunned, grabbing the documents in a frenzy. Marco, you're doing this out of revenge. I turned and walked away, but this time she couldn't stop me as the police had already arrived. After cooperating with the authorities, giving my statement, and providing evidence to prove my innocence, I was soon released from the police station. Even though Elena tried every possible way to stop me, it didn't change anything. As per the divorce agreement, I legally claimed half of the lab's assets. The remaining portion Elena had to sell off to compensate the victims. In the end, everything settled down. Elena tried to pin all the blame on Victor, thinking it would save her from the consequences. But the law is equal for everyone. Victor turned on her, and in the end, Elena couldn't escape the repercussions. In the final moments, as the police took her away, she was still desperately pleading, Marco, I really love you. Please, save me. I don't want to be apart from you. Sadly, I had grown tired of hearing such lies. I left her with only 4 words. Never again. Never again. That was the best closure I could offer for everything I had given. In the interview room at Titan Innovations, I was presenting my research achievements. And Mr. Marco, your resume is impressive, but we've received some less than ideal news. The interviewer hesitated. I knew exactly what was coming. Sure enough, the door to the meeting room opened the next second. Wait, Elena's legal team has arrived. This Mr. Marco is suspected of leaking trade secrets, and we have already filed a lawsuit against him. I gave a small laugh and pulled out a stack of documents from my bag. Please take a look at these patent certificates. All of them are under my name. As for the other core technologies, they're listed in this resignation handover checklist, each one confirmed by Chairman Lee's signature. The lawyers flipped through the documents, their faces growing increasingly grim. This can't be. Chairman Lee said... I interrupted them. Chairman Lee said, well, we have to thank her then. After all, these signatures were all personally signed by her this morning. The interviewers exchanged glances, and the skepticism in their eyes turned to admiration. After the interview, I unexpectedly ran into someone in the break room. Marco, is that really you? Looking up, I saw Daniela, my former university classmate, now the head of the Quantum Communications Department at Titan Innovations. It's been a long time. I nodded politely. She enthusiastically pulled me into a conversation. I heard you're joining our department. That's great. I've been following your research. Your paper on quantum entangled states was impressive. I kept my distance politely and responded briefly. The past hurt had made me wary of any close relationships. Soon after starting at the company, I was assigned to a project competing against my old lab. Elena with Victor came for a technical exchange that was actually just a show of force. Marco, don't think that just because you've left the lab, you're going to succeed, Victor said smugly. I couldn't be bothered, so I turned and walked away. What's wrong? Afraid to take on the challenge? Elena called from behind. I didn't look back. Let's wait for the results. 3 months later, our technical proposal completely outperformed theirs in the evaluation. Watching Elena's sour expression on the news, I felt no sense of satisfaction. Just then, Daniela came over with a cup of coffee. What are you looking at? Nothing. I turned off the news. She gave me a thoughtful look. Do you know what I admire most about you? I looked at her confused. You never care about other people's opinions. You're always focused on the research itself. That's what a true scientist is. Her words left me stunned. Yes, that's what a true scientist is. Her words resonated deeply within me. Yes, that's what I had been striving for all along, the true essence of research, not the hollow fame. Gradually, I rediscovered my original passion. I spent every day in the lab, discussing problems with Daniela and the team, completely immersed in the pure world of science. Finally, in one experiment, we made a breakthrough. Marco, we did it! My assistant shouted excitedly, looking at the stable data on the screen. I smiled, a smile I hadn't worn in a long time. At that moment, I realized that what truly heals you is not the obsession with the past, but the hope for the future. Daniela brought me a cup of coffee. This breakthrough is worth celebrating. I took the coffee from her, and for the first time, I didn't find the new environment so hard to accept. Next, we had Dr. Lisa from MIT, who would share the latest applications of quantum computing in the financial sector. At the International Quantum Computing Conference, I was listening half-heartedly to the host's introduction, but then a clear and bright voice rang out, making me look up. Traditional financial risk control models have significant flaws, and the parallelism of quantum computing can perfectly solve this problem. The woman on stage wasn't wearing any makeup, but she radiated an intellectual aura. What captivated me most was the spark in her eyes when she spoke about the technical details. It was pure academic passion, free from any utilitarian motives. During the Quanda session, I couldn't help but raise my hand. Dr. Lisa, you mentioned the quantum annealing algorithm. Does it have any issues with collapse when processing high-dimensional data? Her eyes lit up. This gentleman has asked a very professional question. In fact, we've already found a solution. After the session, she approached me on her own. Dr. Marco, I've read your paper and your insights into quantum entanglement are unique. I was somewhat surprised. I hadn't published much in recent years. She seemed to sense my confusion. It was one of your papers from university. I've been following your work ever since. The pure academic exchange made me relax unconsciously. In the following days of the conference, we often gathered to discuss issues, ranging from quantum computing to the philosophy of physics. She never mentioned anything about my past, as though she was only interested in my views on research. It wasn't until she told me she was returning to her home country that I realized I had started to subconsciously look forward to our conversations. This feeling was dangerously unfamiliar. Marco, I'm heading back home. Before she left, she invited me for coffee. Good luck on your journey, I replied, pretending to be calm. She smiled. Do you know what I admire most about you? Your talent. I joked. No, she said seriously. It's your sincerity. Despite everything you've been through, your love for research has never changed. That kind of purity is rare. I was stunned. It seemed she knew everything. You investigated me, I asked. No, she replied softly. It's just that the academic circle is small. Then she added, but I prefer to trust my own judgment. Her words touched something deep within me. 2 months later, she returned to work in her home country. Our relationship blossomed naturally, with no forced effort. I like the way you focus, she said, and I like your honesty, even knowing my past. Your past shaped who you are today, she added, looking at me earnestly. And I only care about the person you are now. At that moment, I suddenly understood. True healing doesn't come from forgetting the pain, but from meeting someone who understands you. She didn't need me to be perfect, nor did she care about my past. She simply stood by my side quietly, making me believe again that pure feelings truly exist in this world. It turned out letting go of the past was that simple. You only need to meet someone who makes you willing to start over.